Today I'm going to try and learn how to make multi-pin connectors using this Dupont connector kit and this crimp press to help me wire up my N-gauge model railway. How hard's that going to be? Okay, so on my railway I need a way of connecting various components and various devices together, and I want to come up with connectors I can use for multi-strand wires or cables that don't necessarily need to carry a large amount of current. So for the main DCC bus I use sort of chocolate box big chunky connectors, but I need something a bit smaller, a bit more delicate for signal connectors and sort of low current connectors for lights and things like that. So I'm going to try and use this. I'll open the box in a moment. It's quite a flexible system from what I understand, and there's also an associated crimping press. So it's a standard crimping tool. There you go, and as you close it up, the last bit, makes it nice and really tight. But it's all about the shape of the jaws here, and what makes it that's what makes it close really well. Anyway, we'll come on to that in a moment. And then there's this. This is a 1,550 piece Dupont connector kit. So we better have a look inside. Okay, so it's made up of several different things. The first is these metal connectors. They come on a strip, but I think the idea is you break one off when you want to use it, and then you use the crimpers to attach one of these to the end of each connector conductor. Each wire has one of these on the end. Now they come in two different types. You can see there's female ones here, and these with the protrusion, those are obviously male, and they're obviously designed so that they can plug into each other. There we go. So I assume that works. So you can put a male on one wire and a female on the other, and then use those to connect them together. So that's all good. That's what you'd expect. But I think the key to the system is these black plastic pieces which house these metal connectors once you've crimped them on, and they come in different sizes. So there's a 2x1. This one's got what, 5 connectors. So you have 5 there. You can, I don't think I've actually got any here, but you can get these. So there's more than one row as well. You can get a sort of, a 2x8 or whatever, and they obviously hold these connectors in place in the right order. So once you've put these in, and put the wires in and the crimps, you can then plug them together, unplug them. It keeps everything nice, and that's pretty neat connection. So that's good. Now the magic of these, I believe, is that they are spaced 2.54 millimeters apart, or 1/10 of an inch, and that is a pretty standard spacing, particularly for pin connectors on printed circuit boards. Often on your circuit board you get some pins sticking up, and that's the spacing they'll be. And in fact, as luck would have it, there's a bunch of these which are in fact connectors, pins for circuit boards. So I could cut how many of these I want off, solder them into a circuit board, and then plug in my wire. There you go. So this is going to give me a pretty flexible way of either connecting cables to circuit boards or cable to cable using the male to female. So that's going to be really good. And in particular, I'm going to be able to use it for these circuit boards I've got here. These are infrared detectors. I'm trying to find a way of using infrared detectors to control my trains, and there'll be a video on that. I'll link to it somewhere. I'm not sure if I'll have published it yet, but once I do, I'll put a link in. And you see on the end here, there's a three-way connector there. So I'll be able to get a three-way plug like this one. I'll be able to put some wires on there and then plug it in, hopefully. There you go. And that'll give me a really neat, nice connection. Don't have to solder onto these and then put heat shrink on. It'd be a right mess. So this is a much better solution. So I think the key is it's all about learning how to use these crimpers. And I think the way to do that is just have a go. So, wish me luck. So the whole system came with a short length of ribbon cable as well. It's quite fun this, it's all sort of multicoloured. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a short length off. I'm going to start with this wire because this came with the kit. So I think whoever produced this is obviously of the view that these wires are the right size. Whether that's true or not, we'll find out. But it's good to try and start with something that's going to work. So there we go. I've broken off three ways on it. I'll try and do a three-way cable. And let me just split up each one. There we go. Right. So we go. What I'll do, I'll put female connectors on the end of these, and then I could try and plug it into that circuit board. That would be a good starting point, wouldn't it? Now I believe, oh no, it's slightly different. Okay, so this side is ever so slightly different to this side in the crimps. I'll put up some close-up photographs of this, I think. I think I'm going to try it different ways around. Right, okay. So this end has a couple of teeth on one end, and I believe that's the back where the wire comes in. I believe the teeth are going to wrap all the way around the wire and sort of hold it in place. And if I put the teeth on on one side the holes, or the gaps on this crimp are slightly wider than the other, and there's a ridge halfway through. So if I put it beyond, this way, and then pull it. Let me try that size. Okay, yep. So if I put it all the way through and then pull it towards the other, in the other direction, it catches on the ridge in the crimps, and I believe that's a good thing. This is going to be annoying, I can tell. All right. See, it's going to be necessary to get this in just the right place. It's going to take a lot of practice, I think. Okay. I have to say, if this turns out to be really fiddly and difficult, that's going to be a problem, because I'm hoping to be able to do this easily. Okay. Yeah, there's not many strands of wire in there. Right. It's all about having a go, this. It doesn't work well. Just have to find a better way of doing it. So I'm putting the wire in there. Now, if it goes too far, it's going to block the female part of the connector. So I don't want it to go in too far, but it needs to go in far enough. And I believe the large pins need to wrap around the insulator. So I think that gives me an indication of how long it needs to be. Let's try and shove this in, shove the wire in, and give it a squeeze. Just don't really think there's any other way that makes much sense. Gosh, this is difficult. This is really difficult. Maybe it works better if I put the wire in first. Perhaps if I sort of, tell you what, I could sort of bend the teeth over by hand a bit to hold the cable in place and then crimp it. Ah, that's the way you do it. There we go. So that's sort of held on the end. So I've manually put it in place. Sorry, I've manually squeezed it on just a tiny bit. Now let me have a go with the crimpers. So just push that in until it catches. And now I'm going to give it a squeeze. And nothing much has happened. Oh, I see. Right, it's bent one of them over, but the other one it hasn't bent over. I'll have to give that another go. I know what the problem is. I think I've put the whole thing in upside down, which makes me feel a bit foolish. So I'll try again. So I think maybe it has to go in that way up. Maybe that's better. Ah, that's much better. So I can see it's bent the whole thing round in on itself there. So that's definitely the way that works. And then if I take my 3-pin thing, housing, I don't know which way around this is supposed to go in. I think it's that way around. Where the bit of the crimp that got folded over, I believe that goes upwards, facing with the side that's got the holes. You see that side that's got no holes. And just there, these are little tabs that I believe are going to hook into just here. So if I push this in there, and that little plastic tab now is preventing me from pulling it out. So now, if I plug it in, there we go. And that's now, that pin is now connected to the end. Right, I think that's the way it works. I think I've figured it out. Now to get this out again is possible, but you have to lift up this little plastic tab in order to slide it out. Okay. And that comes out. Okay, so I'm going to strip the other two cables, hopefully to about the same width, same length I did the first one. There we go. So I've done both of those, and then I can try again to put a cable on each to tidy that up a bit. I think the open jaw has to go open into the recess bit like that. This does require a bit of patience. So this whole thing is certainly a bit fiddly. I think you definitely want to twist up the wires just to keep them tidy, and to the strands in the wire just to keep them up tidy and up together. My goodness. Presumably getting the length of these about right is also pretty important. There we go. So give that a bit of a squeeze just to hold it on. Get the other connectors out, other conductors out of the way. No, not good, not good. Oh dear, oh dear. So I've managed to snag the one that I'd already done, and I've destroyed it. This is infuriating. There we go. That was brilliantly on. I'll be honest, I thought this was going to be a lot easier than it is. This is pretty difficult to get right. I expect it'll come with practice. I'm a little bit disappointed from that point of view. I thought this was going to be an easy tool to use, and it's not. It's blooming hard. Either that or I am useless. So I squeezed the jaws up a little bit so it's got something to grip onto the insulation. We'll get the orientation of everything right. Push it in and give it a squeeze. And that looks okay. But let me go through it. Let me pull off the grey one. Right, let's pretend it was just a two-way job. And so I got a 2 connector thing here. If I put one in each hole, This doesn't necessarily go in easily. I've got to say, this is a bit tricky. I think it's going to come out. I think that's okay. But it hasn't quite clicked. Right, and that's pushed one of these out. And now I've pulled the end off. So, it's not really working for me, this. I'm going to need a lot of practice. Yeah, so I think that one somehow I managed to make a mess of it. Well, it was all going very well, and now I'm struggling. Okay, so it's now about 3 weeks later. That was obviously all a bit of a complete disaster. But I've since learned a few things about doing this, so I'll show you what I think is a better method. The first thing is you've got to take a look at the crimp and understand what it's made up of. It's made up of 3 sections. So if we start at the back, so the wire comes in this side. And at the back here, there's these 2 teeth, these 2 prongs that stick up. And they're going to wrap around the insulation and hold the thing onto the wire. Okay, so that's what's there for. If you then look in the middle, there's these 2 longer, flatter tabs that stick up either side. And they are going to wrap around the conductor where the wire has been stripped. Okay, and you've then got the rest of it. Now, from here onwards, that whole part is the female connector, so that needs to remain intact and not be crimped at all. So when I put the whole thing in the crimper, that whole section has to remain safely outside the crimper. We just look at the male one as well, so we can see do a comparison. So there's the teeth that hold onto the insulator. There's the tabs that wrap around the conductor, and the rest of it needs to remain intact. So the first thing we need to do is to strip the wire correctly. So if we imagine it needs to go about that far through, and so this part needs to be stripped, and this part needs to have the insulation on it for the teeth to wrap around. So we're only talking about taking maybe 3 millimeters of insulation off the end of the wire. Now I'm using this as solid core wire. That just means I don't have to deal with the strands for doing this demonstration. But there's no reason that you can't use stranded wire. It just makes it a little bit more fiddly. But if you've got a good method for doing it, it doesn't need to be a problem. So that's the way it's going to be. You see, so the exposed conductor is going to be inside that section with the long flat tabs. Sorry, the insulator here is going to be inside these teeth. All right, so that's the first step, is to strip the wire correctly. The next bit is to insert the connector here correctly into the crimps. Now you'll see there's actually 3 crimps that get slightly larger, and this size of connector, I think really you need to use the smallest ones, but I can use the slightly larger ones just for starting to shape it. You'll also notice that this side is slightly larger than that side. So this side is for closing up the spikes around the insulator, and this side is for closing up the tabs around the conductor. It's also, if we consider this to be the open side where it's going to wrap around, that needs to go down into the recess. Okay. And what I can do is I can put it in, pull it towards me. I think I probably showed you that 3 weeks ago. Okay. Until it sort of clicks, so that gets the right position. And then I can sort of push it in, and that will hold, it'll hold it. Okay. I can then close up the jaws until it touches. And now that's nice and secure. That's not going to go anywhere. All right. So I don't need to worry about it falling out of the jaws, which was a problem I had 3 weeks ago. Now, while I'm at it, I can have a look. I can make sure that this whole section here, that's the female connector, that's safely outside the crimps. Put over there. That's safely outside the crimps, so that's not going to get damaged. And now I can just insert my wire in, and I can see when it sort of sticks out the other side. Now, basically, I don't want it to stick out beyond outside because I don't want to block the female connector. So I've just got to look carefully until I see it just appear. But I can insert the wire until I just see it get level with this side of the crimps. And then when I'm happy, I just give it a squeeze. See if I can get that in focus. So there you can see the spikes have wrapped around the insulator, the tabs have wrapped around the conductor, and the female connector is safe and undamaged. And that's the way you do it. We'll just check that the male connector can connect to it. Make sure I haven't damaged the female connection. And that goes nicely in there. If I get a housing, I get a one by one housing for this. You can see there's the open gap there. So this is the side where the crimp's wrapped around. If I just slide it in, there we go, and that's nicely in there. And if I just check again with the male connector, that goes in. Brilliant. So that all turned out to be a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm sorry about all the drama at the start of the video. Probably not very instructive. But then the approach I've taken to this channel is to show all my mistakes and the journey I go on, rather than just do this is how to do it. I know how-to videos would be sort of useful for people who want to know how to do it. But I'm sharing the whole of my journey, not just trying to get YouTube views. So I think I'm going to crack on with this. I think it is just a matter of getting some practice. I do like these connectors. They are very useful, and I can use them all over the place in order to be able to easily unplug the various components in the future if I need to. I've been making some progress on the layout, laying some track, determined to try and complete my loop as soon as I can. But I think my next video is going to be about this, which is some electronics I'm putting together. I'm building a power supply or a supply to supply various voltages to various components, and this is going to be a control and monitoring board for those various power supplies. Hope you all have a great new year, and 2021 will be a better year for us all than 2020. Hopefully you'll be able to do some modelling as well. I'll see you soon.